Okay.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Nice to see you all here. I'm glad we all made it. It is recording already. Yeah, to start with, please say your names shortly, briefly about where you are now, how you are now, please.
So I'm starting. I'm Michela Gecele, and now I'm in Torino, Italy, at home. We are still a bit closed up in Italy. And well, what to say, I'm a psychiatrist, Gestalt therapist, trainer, and co-director of an institute in Torino teaching Gestalt therapy.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Maybe you go on, Jan, so we can differentiate a bit.
Yeah, my name is Jan Roubal. I'm from the Czech Republic. Yeah, actually, I'm at home. We've moved to a lonely house in the countryside just half a year ago, which was really the right time to do that, because now the quarantine is like a blessing for me, because I can do a lot of things in the house. I don't meet any people. And I'm afraid I'm getting used to that. And besides that, I'm also a psychiatrist and a Gestalt therapist and a trainer and supervisor. And I also teach at the university, and I take part in the psychotherapy research center there at the university. So what I like is like crossing over borders of these different areas, practicing, teaching, and researching psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Mm-hmm.
And I'm Gianni Francesetti. I'm very happy to see you all here. Yes. I'm in this moment, I'm in the mountains nearby Torino, close to Torino, where I usually live in Italy, northwest of Italy. And I'm not afraid that I'm getting used to stay here. I'm sure that I don't want to come back to the city, but we will see how to manage that. So I'm fine in this quarantine, learning, exploring, trying to understand what is happening, the processes in place. I'm like Michela, psychiatrist, a Gestalt therapist, and co-director with her of the Institute of Gestalt Therapy in Torino. And what to say more? Well, when Jan were saying about the commitment to the university and about the research, I would say that one part that is important in my teaching in the last years is to teach the phenomenological existential method and the application in practice at the University of Torino. That makes me in contact with younger people. Mm-hmm. Yes, so it's a nice part of that teaching. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thanks. I am now aware of that I sent you, Gianni, invitation, and in the very invitation I asked you about Jan and Michela, and yeah, I had some idea that I want to interview you all, and I don't know, maybe you will help me to discover why that idea of putting you all together in this box. You partly mentioned that, but if you could, yes, tell me more about your interrelated yeah, aspects of your life and work. Work. Yeah, let's. Yeah.
Let's do the same round.
I think you can go on because you are the link between us.
Okay. Well, the link with Michela is a long story because we met each other where we were students at the Faculty of Medicine, and we started to do research together actually at that time. It was the time where one of the growing edge of research in psychiatry, let's say, neurosciences. It was psychosomatics, the interrelation between the big informative systems of human organisms, so immune, endocrine, and nervous systems. So it was a lot. We did some very interesting research, and we met each other at that time. And then she invited me to enter in a training program of Gestalt therapy after a while. So she is the guilty person that I am a Gestalt therapist, first of all. Yes.
Wow.
And from then, in these many years, I am never allowed to tell publicly how many years it is that we know each other. So I can't say that. But in these many years, we never lost contact, I would say. So we continue to develop, to be interested in dialogue, in discussing, until now it's 3 years ago, yes, we decided to develop together a training institute.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And my link with Jan is shorter, but it's 13 years ago that we met. It was in Athens. It was in the EAGT conference 2007, yes, organized by the Greek Association. And I was there with my first English book that was Panic Disorder and Postmodernity. I had this little table with many books there, and this big man went there and he said, oh, this is a very interesting book. I also like very much to develop a psychopathology in Gestalt therapy. So we started to talk. And in that moment, we had Jan, me, and Michela the crazy idea to develop a book on psychopathology in Gestalt therapy. So it was 2007. And it was so crazy that we didn't know that it was impossible to make that book. So we did it. And the book came out in 2013, if I remember well. Yes, this is a pieces of story. Then there is the actual connection, but I give the memory, and then you can add whatever you want, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would like to add a little bit. I think the issues that Gianni is mentioning are I would say the external or the visible links. But I think there is a kind of a connection that we have in sharing some values or attitudes, or maybe even a way of thinking and elaborating thoughts. And this is kind of a invisible attunement, which for me it's the basis which keeps us in touch and helps us to work together.
Yes, I have nothing particular to add, or maybe too many things. And but as you noticed, I think I would say that they are men and I'm a woman, and I think this is the most evident difference among us. And I think each pair of us has something in common, and so it's interesting. We have something in common, all the three, but the two of us also have something in common, and we like to explore this situation, this difference, this point in common, and to discuss together. And it's a lot of fun when we can meet the three of us.
Yeah. yeah, simply I envy you this years, this connection, external and internal. Attunement, you said, Jan, what about yeah, resonance? Yes, is it this kind of, where are the points of your difference and how are you coping with it? Maybe it's a very general question, but maybe you have some kind of yeah, resonance to that. Maybe you have some idea. How do you cope with yourself when you have different opinions?
Maybe I can try. Well, I think it happens very often that we have different opinions.
So we are trained in that.
And for me personally, it's what's important for me is humility and trust. That when I experience differences among us, as I said, it's very often, I have a real trust in the others that the difference is because of a real interest in the issue, and because of the real effort to understand or to explore the issue that we are dealing with together. And there are no, I would say, no games, no no manipulation, but just the difference is meant to go to see the reality, or to explore phenomenologically, really. Yeah. So that's the trust, and the humility is that when I see the difference, for a moment I try to forget my own opinion, and I for a moment I say, okay, this is so strange, this is crazy, I don't understand that, how they mean it. Okay, maybe it could be like that. Let's see it this way. Yeah. And it's, so I think it's based on trust on my colleagues, but it's also based on trust on myself, that even if I leave my position, I don't lose myself, I would say. Yeah, so that's my point.
Thank you. Would you add anything to that?
Well, I was moved when you were talking, Jan, because I recognize this that you are saying, and I recognize how important is for me a situation where I have the trust that the need for power, or the need for money, or the need for, yes, other issues that are not about the real meeting or the real stuff that we want to develop, are not in the higher positions in our relationships. And this is a very important value. It makes our space in the between quite very important and quite special to me. Yeah. So this is about the basic value that I can feel that I share with Michela and with Jan. And of course, it's not something that is a still ground. It's something always to discover and to move and to be, let's say, also shaken sometimes by differences. And I would say that I'm not sure if it is like that, but sometimes I feel that that Jan is helping me to simplify, and Michela is helping me to complexify. So I am in a position when I sometimes I feel to be in the middle ground of these forces trying to moving me. It's not always like that, but it's something that when I write, for instance, I'm struggle to make Michela be more simple. And Jan is struggling with me to make me more simpler. So this is a way of playing some roles, I guess. But it's also a way to emerge of our differences. And I think this, I feel this as a real richness, because when I discuss with Michela, I discover that sometimes I am too simple. But of course, she's a woman also. And when I discuss with Jan, I discover, I am too complex. So it's for me, with both of them and we all together, something that is pushing me to growing up, to discover. Yes.
Yeah, it seems that we all agree that we almost always disagreed, so that's quite fun also.
Yeah.
I was thinking that before I said that it's very fun when we meet, because actually it is, because we never know what we will be going to think, to say, to project. How many projects will come when we are together for half an hour, for example, and usually 4 or 5 books or so on. And it's also funny because often, of course, when we meet, maybe we are somewhere eating or drinking something, and sometimes it happens that it seems that I'm doing breakfast and Gianni is taking a tea and Jan is having dinner. So it's something like that. So it's also funny about our timing of food and everything, but we can measure.
And Gianni, you said something. What were your beginnings? And the book that you started together and successfully it was published, as you said. And what are your recent interests that you know that somehow bind you together? Interest, well, in terms of theory, maybe a material product in terms of book. I don't know if I am,
trying to spoil our projects. Well, yes, of course, this becomes also a focus of common interests, I would say, in developing theory, in developing teaching, and in developing also practices in clinical work mainly. And I would say that each of us has also specific focus to a common ground of interests. In this moment, what we are developing, and we are also changing quite a lot during the time of coronavirus, and so we are adjusting to new times, but we are trying to develop a school of psychopathology. So like a place where people from Gestalt therapy or from other approaches can approach, can address a kind of psychopathology that is a kind of understanding of human clinical suffering, essentially from a field perspective, I would say. And so this is a concrete project based on the development of the theory that we shared during these years. And we would like, I really would like with Jan and Michela to create a place where people can develop new understandings and contribute to new understanding of psychopathology. From this perspective that I found so original and so useful to clinical work, that is this perspective that combines the tradition of phenomenological psychopathology and psychiatry to and with Gestalt therapy. So is one of the issues.
Thanks.
Yes, I would add, I would say, Gianni, that when you are saying, that's about disagreeing, when you are saying a place, even if we somehow think of a place, because Jan almost is a citizen in Torino too, and we are thinking of Torino as the place for this school. But I think it's not really a place, but a kind of relation or connection between, among people, among us, to create connection also in different countries, in different situations, but a place in a kind of metaphoric sense,
Yes.
meaning. And
yes.
I feel it's very important.
Yes, yes. Unfortunately, probably we are not disagreeing about that. Because it's a place that is a place in the sense of roots of relationship, of nourishing relationships. Yes.
Boundary contact. Yeah. I said boundary contacts. Yeah, not a place really. Locus, they say in English,
yes.
or
Yes.
Lexus. No, Lexus is a car.
A moving place.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have some more plans. We are like we are starting training for supervisors also.
We have tried.
And yeah, now it's difficult. Yes. And we have also plans for another book or revision of the old one. And and many other projects. Yeah, or some books that maybe will never appear, but but talking about them is fun. And we'll see.
And revision of what? I'm curious.
Well, maybe a revision is not a good term for that, but we thought about the book Gestalt Therapy in Clinical Practice, from psychopathology to the aesthetics of contact. So we thought about somehow, how to say, elaborating these issues into more consistent and more deeper understanding in the sense of field theory.
I can understand that. I mean, it was published in Poland very recently, like 2 years ago. I don't know whether you
more or less 2 years ago, 3 years. Yeah,
2 or 3 years. And and I can see the difference between this book and the things you are writing now, and I'm into at your lectures, workshops. So definitely some kind of revision or revisited. So wow.
Yes,
good to know.
It's not only different from what we are writing on doing now, it's a very different approach, because in that book there are a lot of voices, and we think it was important to give voices to many therapists, but now we are going deeper in our own vision, so that's a main difference.
I understand. And if you were to say still about your trio, what do you contribute to this trio out of your personal qualities? You started sort of saying this, but if you were to speak more about your
well, it sounded that I'm the simpler one.
I totally don't agree.
I didn't mean that you were simple, but you are trying to make simpler the things and to express in a more understandable way.
Which is the most difficult task, I would say. Yes.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that, because I think that before I was thinking what, as I said, the pair two of us have in common. And it's very clear what Gianni and me have in common, because a long history, a long attitude to understand each other and so on. And it's quite easy also to understand what Gianni and Jan have in common, because they are kind of male attitude, of the way of thinking or dealing with theory and so on. And they are very good friends also. I think it's a bit more difficult to understand what Jan and me have in common, but I think it's exactly the opposite, or the same thing as Gianni said, because both Jan and me are always making more question, are always moving the point of the situation. What Gianni sometimes doesn't like, but in the end likes.
No, I like the outcome. I don't like the way. Yes, but you're right. You're right, Michela. I didn't know what you had in common. This is what I dislike. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Maybe I would like to ask you, Camilla, because it's not completely clear to me what this interview is is good for. Yeah. Or what's
be prepared. They will start. Be prepared. They will start with questions now.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I guess we still are wondering about that. And with Heather, who, by the way, say hi to you all.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
She wished me luck. I mean, because of the time difference, she sent me the message when I was sleeping. But anyway, so a minute before you actually asked me this question, I thought, oh, you guys are learning something from this interview about
Yes.
yourselves and each other. And yeah, and the other day I was trying to make an appointment for the interview with Joe Bland, and he said something which is somehow reflects something which I wasn't able to articulate that clearly, that yeah, that somehow it helps us, it helps somehow to you know, to support our community in getting to know each other this way also, because sometimes we don't have this opportunity, and of course I feel to have this privilege of asking you questions, and that this from one interview to another I am really more and more excited and more, yeah, somehow free to ask questions that I definitely have in my head. So this is both personal kind of query, I don't know, and a quest almost for reaching all the people I'm interested in and in their thinking and in their being, maybe even the other way around sometimes. And for the community, I guess that people are simply excited when they are watching videos of some of their colleagues or some of the people they don't actually know, but they then somehow say that we got such information, such feedback, that they learn something about those people, because those interviews are quite, you know, in a friendly way, lively. So that was our yeah, main idea. Okay. And of course, Heather would say that more clearly, I guess, in the sense that it is more an archive, and it can be used as an open access archive that people can actually transcribe maybe the interviews, some parts, to use it in the research, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so that sort of, and it's evolving. I mean, I guess this answer to your question. Yeah. Yeah. I'm simply enjoying it also.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like it that it's the aim is to support the community,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and what made me to ask the question was that I was feeling a little bit ashamed that we are talking too much about ourselves, and that maybe we could speak more about the content, yeah, what we are doing or what we can bring or something. But
But it is also very enriching to see how people can actually, Gestalt therapists can communicate, and
okay.
that is really like the very base for their projects.
Okay.
You know, like our Gestalt theory in practice, in presence of you free here. I don't know. I would say this way, and yeah, and I yeah. Mm.
Okay, thank you.
But yes, but you are right, because at the same time I agree that I would like to ask you about your particular interest in Gestalt theory, and maybe that would be again a moment of your differentiation. I am also interested by what your attraction was and is now, maybe within Gestalt theory and in practice. If you could, each of you could say a little about that. Yeah.
I was not interested in psychopathology at the beginning, for example. And they put me in, but I'm very glad, I'm grateful because they did, because I understood what I like inside psychopathology, which is the connection with society, with the environment, with the context, and to understand the evolution, the changing of the suffering, on the forms of the suffering. So I used to work in a center for immigrants. I'm interested in neuropsychiatry and all that stuff. So that is my point inside also our work on psychopathology, both in teaching and in writing. Mm-hmm. And then I'm also interested in all the a kind of artistic side, which is literature, cinema, and so on.
Mm.
She's a writer of crime stories. Yes. In English, it's crime stories. Yeah.
Mm.
I'm not clear what to say, so could you start, Gianni, and I'll make my.
So you know what to say.
Yes, I'm sure you know, and I'll make my mind in the meantime. Yeah.
Well, I didn't start Gestalt therapy because I was interested in Gestalt therapy. I started because I was pushed by Michela. She told me many times, you have to do this training, Gianni. And so I was in other fields, and so I did it. And what happened is that I found, let's say, a clinical, a ethical, and a theoretical frame that was making me feeling at home, finally, after many years of peregrination in the world. So there was something that was about how I felt in this landscape of Gestalt therapies. I felt at home. Mm-hmm. And then it took time in order to integrate what I had learned, all the learning from psychiatry and from psychopathology. There was almost no reflection on psychopathology. 15 years ago, if you say psychopathology in Gestalt therapy, no, there is not psychopathology in Gestalt therapy. So, and now, now means not now, but in the progress of my learning Gestalt therapy, what is confirming and widening as an interest is that is the way we become individuals and persons. I mean, in the way we emerge from the field. This is my main interest. So in order to understand how we are emerging selves, let's say, this helps, this called me to explore the field and the field theory and all the paradox that there are there, because the place where I emerge is a mysterious place. Is a place that is better known by our psychotic patients, or maybe by poets, or maybe by ourselves in some moments, of course, or by mystic people. Anyway, it's something that is my main interest is the ground from where I can understand psychopathology, actually. So this brought to an idea that for me is amazing, that psychopathology is not inside the people. People are just bringing on themselves the suffering that comes from the world. And so this is opening up in a new way the understanding of human meetings, human suffering, human transformation, and therapy too. So this is, in this moment, my main interest.
Yeah, well, I'm happy that Gestalt therapy met me, and this approach really helps me to understand to understand deeply, but not only understand with my brain, but to sense deep meanings, and it gives me some methodology for that. So I'm grateful to this approach. At the same time, I'm not a true believer in Gestalt therapy. It's what I really what I'm identified with is psychotherapy as a way of working, but also a way of growing. And I don't. It's not so important for me to distinguish between separate approaches in psychotherapy. It's important for me to go deep in one approach, but also to open to other approaches. And I'm also involved in psychotherapy integration movement. And this, for me, this is really very useful balance, to go deep in one, but at the same time to be open for inspirations from others. So that's my relation to Gestalt therapy. And about the current point of interest, I think it's the application of field theory in practice. And mainly what I'm really amazed with is that how we can make, or how we can support change to happen by changing ourselves. So how can I help the client to reach some change, to make some change through changing myself? So when I sit with the client, I change myself, I change my presence there, and then suddenly the change can come. And now I can understand what Michela said before, and much more now with the current situation with the coronavirus and about the fear which is present in the society. I can see that now, that this like transforming our way of being present has much more consequences, not only in the therapy room, but also for social situations, for people meeting in the street, meeting with neighbors in these stressful times. I can sense the the tendency for splitting in the society to make things simple, easy, like this is good, this is bad, this one is a bad guy and we are others, yeah, and this one is responsible for that, this is going so bad, and we would like to do it different. So this splitting tendency is in the society now, but when I become aware of it and I can transform my way of being, including both polarities, not splitting, then I think the change is happening in the situation, in the society too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would add something. Sorry.
Yeah, please, go on.
I would add something because I answered, but I kept on the ground Gestalt therapy. I said almost my interests in general, which are inside Gestalt therapists, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say just 3 words about Gestalt therapies, which are ground, support, and next. I think that these 3 words are what I'm interested in Gestalt therapy, which is exploring grounds, which is, as I said, the culture, the ground, social, and everything. And in our time, ground is the core of psychopathology too, and of possibility too. Support, because it's so important, just this little word to understand how much everything depends on how much support exists for a process or for a meeting, for whatever. And next, because I'm at least not so much interested in the past, but also in the past, but in the key or the future, or what is not yet here, or what is coming. And that's why I like literature and cinema, because they have a kind of prophetic role in my vision, and to help us to understand and to go into a path we don't know yet.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I am aware that I'm meeting, 3 now, I mean, not a group, but 3 separate people with their own ideas, and how to embrace you all here. My embrace, my heart is it's easier for my heart, it's more difficult for my mind, even though I like my mind, but yeah, we don't have that much time, but I am I am taking in what you're saying, and maybe like to make you a group again, reunite you about this field theory. I wonder, because the field was there in PhD somehow present. I mean, and then this relational focus appeared throughout the 70s, maybe 80s, yes, and then this field, I don't know, theory. So what's so different about what you are contributing, what you are planning to contribute? So my mind asking you the question.
I can start to to say something about that, and then of course it's just the start. The difference in the field paradigm, if we look to difference with the relational paradigms of the 80s, that is not only Gestalt therapy, it's transversal to psychotherapy, and the relational turning psychoanalysis also, is that a field theory approach, as we are developing nowadays, is more connected to the idea that the self is an emergent process and not something that is already there, and then we meet and we make contact and we meet the novelty or that we are for each other. But there is something that is before this. This simple observation changes the way we understand the processes in therapy. For instance, there is no more need for projection or projective identification. It's mine, it's yours. It's more important to see what is already moving into the field that is the before and the between us. And as Jan said, is more to modulate the presence of the therapist in order to let the forces that are already there to move the subjectivities that are emerging outcomes of a process. And this changes the way to look psychopathology, psychotherapy. And this helps also to include wider forces that are so present that are completely invisible. That is the social influence and the cultural and social influence. So this perspective changes or add an awareness on a dimension that was already there, of course. It's just a way to describe something that was already there in a new way, in a more understandable, maybe, and we hope also transmissible, that is possible to teach also. Because just to say is the field is very hard to teach. So it's important to go deeper in order to describe more what is happening before the individualities are emerging. This is a piece.
Michela, do you want to go on, or should I?
Yes, I was going to. Yes, I like it very much when Gianni is speaking of the field, because you know, he's a kind of he gives words as he's saying to something. But I'm a bit joking now, but it's not a joke. I really think and feel about this field theory a kind of difference, as I said before, about from a male point of view and a female point of view, because I'm using the word field, and I'm speaking of field theory for didactic purpose, to speak and to join, to connect with Gianni, with Jan. But I don't really feel the need to use this word so much, because I think that it's, as Gianni said, by the way, is already there. Also, that those three words I said before are about the field. I cannot think of living and of doing psychotherapy without being in the field, which can be a larger or smaller field. It can be more and less aware. It can be open to new possibilities, or a bit or too much closed by all the introjects, but the field is there, and so I like speaking of that. But I don't know, always need to speak of that. It's like Tao is there.
Yeah. For me, there are two aspects that maybe I would like to mention now. One is kind of a general that for me, working from the field theory perspective teaches me to work in kind of a how to say that, humility, or it's like when we were working from the one person psychology perspective, or person-centered perspective, there was a big risk of omnipotence, that we are the ones who make the change. But also in the dialogical perspective, I think there still is the risk of being too anthropocentric. I would say that we me and the client, we are co-creating the change. We are the ones who make the change. But from the field theory perspective, it's more humble position that, okay, I can somehow support the change or not stand in the way of the change processes. So I can be an active part in it, but at the same time, I'm part of something bigger, of some bigger process. So I like this humility in it.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that's one point. And the other point is quite practical about the methodology of working, that we used to work with a figure. We were trained to see the emerging figure and to make it more explicit, more sharp, more differentiated, and then we were trying to support the change. And from the field theory perspective, we start earlier. We start before the figure is emerging, and we in a way are searching for ways to transform the ground, and then a different figure can emerge. But it's not our work what comes. Okay, yeah, that's for me.
Yeah, something from humility. I like it very much, Jan, that you said the humility. We have to speak more of that. Because I think, as I said before about this polarity, male and female, is the same thing about West and East, for example. I think males speak of a field more than female because they live it less somehow. And in West, we speak more of field because we live it less than in it's a kind of polarity that we have to bring up because it's not so common in the not common everyday life.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Michela. It just reminds me my client that I talked with 2 days ago, and she taught me something really important. She said how important for her is to work in the garden now. And then we in a way discussed the metaphor that psychotherapy could be similar to that we are also it's similar to working in the garden, and in a way preparing the space, preparing the ground so that something can grow. But this is our work in psychotherapy, that we are preparing the ground, and then we can just provide support, as you said, and something will grow. Yeah.
Well, I can see that it's like 4 minutes left, but just to, because I'm really somehow grateful for those last comments, also from this perspective of Gestalt therapist that I also am, and I think that this field theory is really like, I mean, I would disagree with you, Michela, that it is important to mention this field, and in this sense that we've been mentioning that this is so important, the field, but rather thought of this in-betweenness, and we were that it is more or less the same. I don't know. There are such kind of this differentiation is very needed. I know that you all here somehow underline the difference, but I guess that in the field of our Gestalt field, there is this kind of conflation, I would say, if there is such a word, not confluence, but a kind of that there is no difference between in-betweenness and field, as if maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but it's as if there was no new turn within Gestalt therapy, and there is a turn from this relational to this field.
Sorry, I agree with you. I mean, when you say
of course.
Yeah, as I said in the beginning, I started saying that I like it very much when Gianni is speaking of that, because he's speaking of that let emerge all the other things we are saying. So it's very important.
Yeah, I'm joking. I'm aware that yeah.
I wanted to underline this beginning because I like it very much when Gianni is speaking of that.
And also because I just want somehow to to give weight to what you all said, and that's why I'm kind of repeating. And also this kind of what you said about what was that? Yeah, that. Relational and field, and that and what you said, Jan, about this grounds and sticking to ground. It's yeah, but I meant something else, but I forgot. So I don't know.
I want to make a comment about humility. Because humility, in my understanding of what Jan is saying, is not, before being an ethical position, is a clinical position. You must be humble if you want to grasp what comes from the bottom. And also, this is in the root of the word, because humble comes from humus, then in Latin means the ground. So to be humble means to stay close to the ground. So it's a clinical position. If you want to grasp what is moving in the field, you have to be humble, because is that the level from where the forces are moving? Jana, you're laughing when I say that.
Yeah, because we are in the garden with humus again.
Yes. Yeah.
Humility and garden, next book.
Project. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much for your presence, openness, and this next, because I could feel that that you were somehow still developing your ideas and were open to one another. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Camila, for this chance.
Thank you, Camila.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have a good day, and and see you somewhere. Good luck with the project.
In some
Thank you.
place.
Bye-bye.
Bye.